Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Breaking the Fourth Wall, the show where the opinions are made up and nobody really gives a shit. I'm your host, Chris Wilde, and with me, as always, is my panel of fun-loving guests. First and foremost, he is the master of the Pickled Picard, Mr. Charles Brito.
Hello, I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere.
He's cute.
It's my new thing.
He's not that big. He's a lowercase q.
Well, I want to know who pickled his Picard.
Hey.
Oh.
We may allow cursing, but it's still a family show. Also,
Wait a minute, because you'll never understand. We don't get to mention the Klingon nudity that happened in the last Discovery.
no, that's next episode.
Oh, okay.
But I will mention that I know a particular panelist who will walk all the way to the fiery depths of Mordor and back just to hear Bortus sing "My Heart Will Go On." Miss Kristen Stovall.
I don't know if I'd do it for that song. Hello, everybody.
And of course, the man who, without whom, time itself would just eradicate and go away, and we'd get stuck in an alternate universe where Star Trek Discovery would be the premier Star Trek show ever, Mr. Dan Laria.
Well, because I'm so old that I actually discovered time, just so we're clear on this. What was there before? There was the Great Void. There was there was Oz and Za. Oz was the everything, and Za was the nothing. And then I came up with the idea and said, hey, how about if we create time so that we can have something actually happen?
And then nothing
now
happened.
I age, now I lose time, now we move it back and forth every year. Okay, thanks a lot for that. No. That was the government. I had nothing to do with that one. Okay. In fact, I was the one who said, now that's silly. I mean, wherever the sun is, if the sun up in the middle of the sky at noon, then it should be news.
Well, in fairness, I mean, when they created the daylight savings time thing, yeah, let's have a little history lesson. It was for the farmers back in the day, really before everybody had a personal clock in their house, or whatever the case may be. So that way they would get more time in the light to be able to farm, and take care of their crops and stuff. In this modern age where we have devices all over us giving us time frames, and most of our food being processed anyway, it's not needed.
No.
I don't like the fact that I'm sitting here right now, and I've been sitting here for the last hour and a half in darkness because for some reason the sun goes down at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
I'm still not used to it.
Well, I'm surrounded by farmers. I'll see if they agree with you.
Well, while you're doing
we
that...
don't like it either.
While you're doing
Send
that...
us more farm subsidies, yes. Yeah, somebody should ask the farmers if they even like the idea of daylight savings time.
But while you're going ahead and doing that, let's go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of the show here. Yes, the show is not vegan. You're going to have meat. Deal with it.
Wait, is there gravy?
More gravy.
Okay.
First and foremost, I know he really, really wants to talk about it. The vertigo spiral that is Klingon boobies.
Wait a minute, I thought we were saving that for the second hour.
Screw, we'll start it here. Go ahead, Dan.
Continuity, man, continuity. I don't necessarily know that I want to talk about Klingon boobies, except for that it's going to be the elephant in the room, at least during Talking Trek, because if we don't talk about the Klingon boobies during Talking Trek, somebody's going to be like, wait, you didn't even bring that up? Seriously? Yeah.
Of all the,
okay.
I will say, in all the times I watched all the different episodes of Star Trek, including Star Trek Voyager, that fucking had 7 of fucking 9, and these are the boobs I finally get to see.
Wait.
I never thought I'd be missing the Dura sisters, I'm telling you. I'm missing the Dura sisters right now.
Okay. First of all, for anybody who actually hasn't seen the episode yet, spoilers!
I haven't seen. I have no idea what we're talking about except for boobs.
Yes, there is the nudity that forget the time stream, forget the negative zone, forget the mirror universe. Chris wants to start with the boobies. So, okay, let's start with the boobies. There is a scene where the creators of Star Trek, this version, Star Trek 6, okay, have been talking about since the very beginning. There's going to be cursing. There's going to be nudity. There's going to be this. There's going to be that. The cursing consisted of, wow, that's really fucking cool, isn't it? Yeah, it is fucking cool. Really? That was what? That was throwaway lines, okay? Chris, that what they did there was us doing our ice cream bit, except for it didn't stick.
Yeah.
It was just ridiculous. So now, in their infinite wisdom,
Just swear to have, just to swear. It was purely to have the words in there.
exactly.
It was not.
It wasn't.
Exactly.
It wasn't even organic. It was literally thrown in for the sake of throwing it in. You could tell it was forced into the dialogue.
Yes. And now they've done the same exact thing with their nudity scene. Okay? The guy that everybody thinks is a Vulcan, is a Klingon to begin with, is having these quote-unquote flashbacks.
PTSD flashbacks, yeah.
Yes. What everybody on YouTube is saying is he's not having flashbacks. He is the Vulcan, the Albino Vulcan that has disappeared from, after his girlfriend said, oh, well, I'm going to have to change you. I'm going to have to make you feel pain and forget things and this and that and the other thing. Duh. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, pardon the pun, to figure out that the human that, what do they call her on YouTube? They call our main character Commander Mary Sue, because somehow or another, Mary Sue became the thing that happens on Star Trek when a character, regardless of how smart.
It's a fan fiction term.
Yeah, it's a fan fiction in general term of a character, particularly female, that's just overpowered, can do no wrong.
Overpowered, too perfect, can do no wrong, is overly relevant to the plot. Everybody is, everything revolves around them. There's a term for a male version as well, but Mary Sue is certainly the more well-known phrase.
And how long has that term been around exactly?
Well, I only first heard it when Star Wars Episode 7 came out.
Fanfiction really started with, it came from a fanfiction for the original Star Trek, Ensign Mary Sue. That's where a lot of fanfiction originated from, was the original Star Trek series. So it's been around for a long time.
And Ensign Mary Sue was somebody in fanfiction that, she always managed to solve every problem that was happening, regardless of the fact that Kirk, Spock, and Scotty were usually the problem solvers on the original one?
Yes, and everyone was in love with her, I think. I've never read the thing I've never read the actual fanfiction, but I've read the history on the term.
Well, see, the perfect example again. The first time I ever heard it was really heard it and thrown around was Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. A lot of people were throwing that label on Rey because the character, even though they have 2 more movies to discover her parentage and how she fits into the universe, just because of the way she could inherently use the Force and use a lightsaber and seem to be powerful with the Force, she's automatically a Mary Sue. Forgetting the fact that there is a backstory we're going to get exposed to.
You're the Star Wars guy,
right?
Between you and me, but I don't see her being the Mary Sue character, because the first time I've ever heard the term used is when everybody couldn't stand Wesley Crusher. and they were calling him Mary Sue because you have Picard, Riker, Data, Troy, and all these LaForge, and all these other people, and somehow or another, little 14-year-old Wesley Crusher is always the one solving all the problems in the first season, which is why everybody hated him.
Well, to show how much whether I like or dislike Wesley Crusher, Will Wheaton, if you're listening, shut up, Wesley.
Anyway,
he sent out a tweet to everybody that said nobody better say that to him ever again, or he'll take you out of his list or whatever you call it. I'm not on that stuff. And apparently,
Patrick Stewart
got a taste card. Patrick Stewart wrote, "Shut up."
Shut up, Will.
What's his real name? Yeah, shut up, Will. I know that was good.
No, I thought you were going to say that Will was threatening to take everybody who says it out of his will.
No, out of his tweet list or whatever it is.
It is kind of funny because
Twitter, yeah.
it is kind of funny because I've seen a lot of things with Will Wheaton past Star Trek. I don't mean like movie wise, but he does a lot of like web series dealing with like games and role playing games like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff of that nature. And you see his and you see his character portrayal of himself on like things like The Big Bang Theory. He seems like a pretty cool, down to earth guy. It's a damn shame that he's going to be forever known as that whiny, spineless, punk nosed, did not belong in Star Trek character, Wesley Crusher.
You know, I like Wesley, so I'm just going to put that out there. I did actually like him.
Wesley Crusher was the Jar Jar Binks of Star Trek.
Actually, yes.
I think that's harsh. At least he wasn't computer animated.
I don't know. Some of those smiles looked computer generated to me.
I would have said the original Ferengi were the Jar Jar Binks of Star Trek, but I'm going to agree with.
I think you're right. The original Ferengi.
Because they were
one of my favorite memes is when they show you Wesley when Q made him into an adult and what he really looks like as an adult.
Yeah.
I
and
remember
this
that
big
episode.
hulking guy that Q made up.
I remember that episode. Fabio with short hair.
Yeah, pretty much.
There goes that continuity.
Well, I think going back to the Klingon boobies, I think the thing that disturbs me the most isn't even so much because to me they're not even Klingons, because they're not. I'm sorry, and again, I just recently watched the J.J. Abrams trilogy, which is going to get into our rant here later. I firmly believe that Star Trek Discovery is in the mirror universe. I don't care what the hell CBS All Access is trying to tell you. I wholeheartedly and firmly.
I'd rather talk about that than the Klingon movies because I agree with you. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
But the problem that bugs me the most about that scene was it was an
we're back to the movies again? Okay.
Yeah, it was just a complete. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but it was just a complete and gratuitous and unnecessary rape scene. She's raping him.
Well, yes and no, but here's my problem with that. If he really is, what's the albino's name, Bach?
I don't remember her name,
Bach,
but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Bach because considering the fact that they were doing the nasty, I found it ironic that his name actually rhymed with what they were doing. But if he really is Tyler really is Bach, then it's not a rape scene because they were obviously lovers. Okay, what no one seems to be picking up on is that it's not a rape scene. He has fragmented memories because after she turned him into a human, she wiped his memory so that he could actually, become this character that he was portraying. I think what actually happened, and again, this is just my theory, but I do see a lot of YouTube people supporting this idea, is that either she operated on him and made him a human being, or they took the guy that really was him, the person that he supposedly is now, and transferred Bach's mind into that body. Okay?
The person had a sexual encounter with this person who was in an altered mental state, and that's not, because in my opinion, that's rape. Like, it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. This person was in an altered state of mind.
No.
Couldn't make a decision.
No. He was not in an altered state of mind. They were both Klingons, okay? She turned him into human so that he could go find out what was going on the Discovery. He doesn't remember that. What he remembers in the scene that we're talking about is that the two of them were doing it. Now, because he has fragmented memories, he doesn't remember that it was consensual.
He doesn't remember that he was actually Klingon. He's thinking himself human being raped.
Okay. Because I was kind of confused about that. I was like, wait.
So everybody's all outraged because there was a nude scene with gratuitous boobies. Okay, when everybody should be like, okay, so you're more upset that there was gratuitous boobies and not that the fact that this guy thinks that he was getting raped.
Star Wars, Star Trek is supposed to be past sexualizing the characters. Like, it's supposed to be past all the gratuitous sex and gratuitous nudity. And
you mean since after the classic series?
No, not true, because William Riker.
Well, even that was toned down compared to what it was. They were working toward what Star Trek became. Like, why do we have all of this gratuitous stuff now? Like, there's Game of Thrones. People who want to watch Game of Thrones watch Game of Thrones. People who want to watch Star Trek watch Star Trek. Don't try to turn Star Trek into Game of Thrones in space.
But that's exactly what they're doing. Okay, and first of all, the outrage of there being a nude scene. How nude could the girl have been? Does anybody know what the actress looks? Because I happen to know what the actress looks like in real life. Okay,
naked.
No, not naked. No, I don't know her like that.
Who knows? Maybe her boobs look like that. We don't know.
She was on After Trek, okay, and she was talking about her character, and she looks like she could be Irish or something. So obviously, her boobs aren't bronze in real life. Okay, I mean, in the scene, it's a brief moment that you see them. She's in full makeup, so you cannot recognize her head at all. Her boobs are bronze, and I don't even know that you see a nipple. And if you do, they're probably like the plastic Klingon nipples.
They were spiral. They were like, I saw this scene and I was like, wait a minute. Does she have like torture freaking scar circles where her nipples are supposed to be?
Exactly.
It looked like the rings of Saturn.
If you've ever seen Worf without his shirt on, you know that Klingons have those ridges that are on the top of his head go all the way down their spines. Okay, so I couldn't make out whether or not they continued the ridges down her spine or not, because the angle was more towards the boobs at the back. But if they did the scene right, then she was in head to toe makeup, all bronzed and all spiky. How was that nude?
Well, again, I mean, if you look at it from like Rebecca Romaine Stamos and I forget, Jennifer Lawrence playing Mystique, they're not technically nude playing Mystique either. I mean, it is kind of a full body outfit.
Yes.
Whether or not they're actually nude, it's still very sexualized. I mean, I think the technicality of whether or not they're nude is a moot point. It's the sexualization of those shows. It doesn't need to be there. Like, you can tell the story without doing that.
It's not a moot point. That is the point. Your point, which I agree with you, Kristen, is that it doesn't need to be there at all. The point they're trying to make is in doing this, the gratuitous cursing and doing the gratuitous sex scene, is they just want something for someone to be talking about after the show is over. How many people went to high school and college and had, like, you know, when I was in college the second time, because I just kept on going for shits and giggles, Star Trek Next Generation was out. And while we were doing Academy Earth Days and Nights of Gods and Heroes, of course, the day after the Next Generation episode came out, that's all we talked about for the good first hour when we were doing our own production. So that's what they're looking for. They're not looking to stick with Star Trek continuity. They're looking for talking points so that people talk about the show, so that other people go buy the All Access and go watch the scenes that they're talking about. You're not going to find those scenes. Well, I haven't looked, but I'm pretty sure you're not going to go find those scenes on YouTube because it's All Access. So the only way you're going to see that scene is if you go buy the All Access.
I don't have All Access. And
yeah, but whether or not they're actually naked doesn't change the level of sexualization, is what I was saying.
Well, you know, the more we're thinking about it, and the more we're talking about it, first off, I got to make a point off of Dan's point. He's right. They want people to talk about it, and unfortunately, I have to announce that from this day forward, Realm of the Mist Entertainment will no longer be giving any type of continuity to Star Trek Discovery in any way, shape, or form because I want to see the show canceled. No, no, I think in reality, I think that scene, as much as it was disturbing and wrong, just in the way it was presented, I think it was a perfect metaphor to what they are doing to the Star Trek mythos. They are raping it.
Raping it?
They are raping it.
Uh-huh.
They you know, people bitch about, like, J.J. Abrams just rehashing Episode 4 with Episode 7, but at least he didn't rape the franchise. Star Trek Discovery is completely...
Serial.
That was not JJ. If you go back and watched interviews with George Lucas, he said that every set of 3 episodes was going to be secular like that.
No, I know
so
that. It's like
I don't like JJ. That's not JJ's fault.
Well, a lot of people felt that he was too on the nose with it rhyming Episode 4. I don't care. I enjoyed the movie.
You can follow the same things and not copy.
Well, again, too, we'll pick on JJ in the other way. JJ rebooted the franchise of Star Trek in movies. I happen to enjoy them, but a lot of people consider those the a lot of people consider those the bastardization of Star Trek. Not really.
See,
at least they still stuck true to some of the rules.
What people have to understand is Star Trek is the perfect venue for TV. Star Wars is the perfect venue for movies. In order for Star Trek, I've never, as much as Star Trek is my favorite TV show of all time, followed very closely by Doctor Who, Star Trek, I've never enjoyed a Star Trek movie as much as I've enjoyed one episode on TV.
Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home.
I liked it, but, well, that's probably as close as they came to being a TV episode, yes.
Spock learning about colorful metaphors.
First Contact.
First Contact had the same feel, yeah. Going back in time, Deanna Troi drunk.
Yeah. The thing is, with the way that Star Trek's set up, it's a very difficult transition to film. You know, because it's set up so episodically, and then with film, you have to have sort of this concise beginning, middle, end, you know, unless you're going to do a whole bunch of them. And with Star Trek, the movies didn't really connect as if they were a series of movies. They were just unrelated movies in the same universe.
Except for Star Trek 2, 3, and 4, which technically was the Star Trek trilogy.
Right. But usually they aren't. Like, most of them have not been connected story-wise. But we did have that story arc there.
Right. Well, it's kind of funny, playing off of what Dan just said about, like, Star Trek is perfect for TV and Star Wars is perfect for movies. We're going to test that theory here in a minute. getting into some of the new Star Wars news going on, Disney has announced that not only is Rian Johnson after Episode 9, which we know J.J. Abrams is directing Episode 9, afterwards, Rian Johnson has been tasked to create the next trilogy of Star Wars movies. From reports, Rian is going to be creating a trilogy of movies that is going to be set in a different part of the Star Wars galaxy and have nothing to do with any of the pre-knowledge characters that we know of in the Star Wars universe thus far. So we're getting a chance to see a whole new part of the Star Wars galaxy with whole new characters.
So no Skywalker.
Skywalker. No Vader. No Kylo. No First Order. Well, maybe presence of First Order, but nothing like Captain Phasma. Well, we don't even know what time it's going to be set in. It could be, in the Old Republic days. It could be well into the future. It could be coinciding.
Oh, please be in the Old Republic days.
But that's not only the big news. That's not only, although we will discuss that. That's not only the big news. Star Wars and Lucasfilm and Disney have announced that they are releasing a live-action Star Wars TV show.
Nice. That's awesome.
But it'll be part of their new streaming service.
Their new streaming service, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah.
Right, so that's going to be like their version?
Yep, their version.
But let me
I'd like to take everything one-on-one. Give me a bunch of streaming services so I can get rid of cable.
Well, see, I'm fine with Disney.
500 channels, $180 for it.
I'm fine with Disney because Disney has announced
that there's still nothing on.
I'm fine with Disney because Disney has announced that their streaming service will not only be cheaper than Netflix, but it's unlike CBS All Access, which the only thing to get it for is Star Trek Discovery. Access will have everything from Lucasfilm, everything from Marvel, everything from Disney, everything from Pixar.
Ooh.
So one monthly fee and be able to watch everything from what Disney movie studios releases. I'm fine with that price.
Yeah.
But allow me to put let me put the final nail in the coffin of Star Trek Discovery here for a minute. Besides Star Wars releasing a live-action TV show, it has also been reported Lord of the Rings will be releasing a live-action TV show as well.
Mm-hmm.
They have been talking about a live-action TV show for a long time with Lord of the Rings, but it seems like things are definitely more official now and moving in that direction. So thank God, that'll be awesome.
And what channel is that going to be on?
Has not been announced yet.
Yeah. I mean, with all of these things, especially like the Star Wars not dealing with the Skywalkers and all the stuff that's familiar, like that's gonna be a real challenge to get people to embrace it. But if they do it right, it could be so good because there'll be all this freedom that they don't have when they're addressing the Skywalkers and the known stuff. So I'm really excited about that. That's really intriguing.
I think the key to what you just said, Kristen, is if they do it right, which is one of the problems everybody has with Star Trek right now.
Well, see, I'm on the opposite end of the coin here. I think it's a very smart choice because one of the major things that the fan base is arguing about, yes, I believe the saga movies should always be about the Skywalkers because that's what it's about. But in the long run, a lot of people have been complaining about the prequels, about the new the new trilogy, and everything else that and all the spin-off movies. It seems to be shrinking the universe. It's narrowing the story band to just one story. This is exactly what you need to do to show that there is a broader spectrum to the Star Wars mythos.
Oh yeah. And I think it would be I'm really excited. I had not heard that until you announced it, but I'm really excited.
Well, how many people liked Rogue One? I enjoyed the movie.
I love Rogue One.
As much as good as Rogue One was, all I needed was that 2-minute hallway scene.
At the very end?
That's all I needed. Just Darth Vader wrecking shop. That's all I needed. That was price of admission right there.
Rogue One is possibly one of my favorite Star Wars movies now.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah. The new ones, all the way, not including the full 3, originals.
I was about to say, it doesn't beat Empire, but it's definitely up there.
Yeah.
It really brought, like, a level of realism and life to the universe that I didn't even realize hadn't been there until I watched it. And then I was like, oh, this just made it seem so much more real now. It made it seem bigger, and it just made everything bigger than the Skywalkers. And I have nothing wrong against the Skywalkers, but it just added a level and a layer to it that I didn't realize I wanted until I saw it.
Well, that's exactly it. Rogue One was born from the first sentence or the first paragraph of the opening crawl to Episode 4, A New Hope. It was the movie nobody knew they had to have.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was the Star Wars movie I've been waiting for.
Yeah. That was what Episode 7 should have been. And I don't mean like, taking away from the mythos of the Skywalkers, but I mean the intensity level of it. That was the movie everybody was hoping to see in Episode 7.
Yeah.
They just heck out of the movie later.
I completely agree with you. Yeah. Completely agree with you.
But, we've been mentioning Rian Johnson, we've been mentioning J.J. Abrams, and of course we've been talking about Star Trek. That leads me into the rant. I'm kind of forcing forward here because, we're already starting to run out of time here. I want to get into this rant. I was having a discussion with Dan, and I was thinking about this while I was watching, like, the J.J. Abrams Star Trek reboot. And, thinking about how much, like, even I pick on Star Trek Discovery or the movie reboots of Star Trek. How many people are complaining about Star Wars Episode 7 or Rogue One or the upcoming Solo movie, and stuff of that nature. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, it's like, well, majority of the people that are complaining and bitching about these things are the old school fans. It's me, it's you, it's Charles, it's all around. It's the people that grew up with the franchises. But really, weren't our parents doing that when George Lucas and Gene Roddenberry and all that came up with these franchises and foundations to begin with? I mean, they kind of passed the torch to J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson, for lack of a better term here, or Gareth Edwards, who did Rogue One. Wouldn't it be fair to say that they're the new George Lucas or Gene Roddenberry of the new generation of fan base?
I think so, because I think George Lucas and Gene Roddenberry, they came up with something original. These people are just continuing that. So I don't think it's not the same level of creativism. Oh my God, I'm so tired. Creativity. Wow, I'm a writer. I can do words.
Well, let me clarify what I mean.
I had to take painkillers for my back, so I'm a little loopy.
Well, let me clarify my point. Maybe it'll make more sense for you then. I'm not necessarily meaning that they created the franchise like Roddenberry or like Lucas did, but for many of the new fan bases that Star Wars and Star Trek are getting, the franchises are getting, this is their first exposure. Star Trek Discovery or the J.J. Abrams Kelvin Universe Star Trek is their first exposure to Star Trek. Many of the kids nowadays, like my children, their first Star Wars movie that they got to see, in theaters in the big screen was Episode 7. These are their movies now. It's not our movies or our TV shows now. It's theirs. We just hold on to it because we can't let go. With that thought process in mind, would that make people like Abrams and Johnson kind of our new Lucas, Roddenberry, Spielberg, whatever other big name creators and movie producer directors you could think of? Is it their universe now?
Is it their universe? See, because when you first approached this to me earlier, like I actually mentioned it to your birthday twin, and what I said to her was, in my mind, and I'm going to add a name if you don't mind, Stan Lee, Gene Roddenberry, George Lucas, I think I had somebody else. Let's say Isaac Asimov, for the sake of the conversation. They were all visionists, okay? Whereas the people that and Spielberg you mentioned, and whereas the people that you're talking about now, they're just revisionists. To me, they're apples and oranges. They're Roddenberry, Lee, Lucas, all of them didn't just create something out of nothing. Chris, you made a good point earlier that when I said Lucas took a lot from Valerian and from Joseph Campbell, you also added Buck Rogers. I'm like, you know what? You're right. Stan Lee, when he was creating characters, the Hulk was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The Spider-Man was from old African mythos. Thor was from Norse mythos. So he got the idea of the characters from somewhere. And Asimov, were there robots before Asimov? I think maybe Metropolis. But they all got their ideas from somewhere, but then they took the idea and they recreated it so that it was something completely new and different. Whereas the people that are working on Star Trek and Star Wars now are just, revisiting something that already exists. And the problem is, in my mind, and you guys, I'm happy if you disagree for the sake of the conversation, they're not revisiting it in the way that the people that have followed it in the past see that path going. Okay? Whereas the people that are just coming in fresh and new could give a shit because they never saw it before. So to them, that is their first taste of it. I'm going to stop there. Go ahead.
Two things. Well, first of all, I think that that their job is not to create something totally different. They're given jobs to do what they can do to move a property, which is Star Wars and Star Trek. Mm-hmm. Saying that, I can agree on a business sense that they were thinking business, because nowadays the creativity is money is more important than creativity is. Yeah. It's not the days of Lucas and Spielberg where you saw genius and you let them run with it. Now, even Disney. They've been pulling out some great stuff, but they control their properties very strongly. You see what happened with Rogue One and the other one. They took months to fix and make it better from what the director had done. So they didn't even trust the directors on it. So they, and yeah, I agree. They're not making it for the people that like us. We're old people. They're making it for the new people that's where the money is. There's a lot more of them than there are of us. And that just shows by, the fact that CBS Access is a success. Because they thought it wouldn't be. There's a bunch of complainers, but there's a lot more people that like it than the complainers, than us old folks. So, we're out. Sorry.
I think it
for us.
Down to the thing where, Roddenberry and Lucas and Spielberg were creating something. They were trying to create a story, a world, something really immersive. And now it feels like what they're creating is a product.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where I lose the most patience, because it's just this generic slap the stickers on it, make it shiny, put it in the theater, and there you go. And the thing is, that's what sells. And like you said,
yeah, unfortunately, it's selling.
So right now they're making a product.
Yeah.
And not,
if it didn't sell, they wouldn't do it. They'd go back to the old ways. But they're not going to. Because, the next generations after us have been bred to be basically, stupid. Easy to please. I don't know what the word is, but it's a whole new world. And
back to Star Trek Discovery, sex sells, and they're catering to that.
I said it before, when they used the couple of swear words on there, I would have been a lot happier if they used it intelligently, to do it like something like a comedic genius would do. You put it in the place where you don't expect it, and it actually works. It's actually funny. But to throw it where they did, it just seemed stupid. It just seemed like, okay, we'll just use it here because, there's this break in the script. We'll just put it here. And as far as the race scene or attack scene, I see it as a dual thing to make us try to figure what it out. I don't know if it's a rape. It might be those two just making crazy sex together because he is Vor, whatever his name is. And I guess we'll discover what that really is. So people are kind of jumping the gun. What is that? As far as the boobs are concerned, at the quick look that I saw, I thought it was like a covering of some kind. They were so hard and stiff, I thought it was a shield. So,
how do you know Klingon boobs aren't hard and stiff?
I don't know.
Have you been with a Klingon female?
Not recently. I mean, no.
My ex-wife.
That's just the Dura sisters.
My ex-wife.
That's stiff as a board, not hard as a.
Let's give a little let's give a little love to Mark. That rape scene reminded me of Mark's wedding night.
Oh my gosh! Mark still can't get away from his wedding night. Well, in fact, I'm willing to bet that if most people would have bet money on which alien would have showed off her boobs first, it would have been the Orions.
Well, who hasn't seen an Orion slave girl's boobs?
Exactly.
All right, well,
I can imagine what they're going to be like on Discovery because we haven't seen them yet, so it's going to be quite an interesting whatever they're going to do with it. But as far as you guys said that you think that they're already in the mirror universe, I don't think so. I think the captain is from the mirror universe, and what he did in the last episode is put him right back there. Well, that little things that have been showing up that he changed the code in the last second to change it to where he wanted to go, and he's really been acting near like for the whole show, aside from everybody else.
Yes, we're not there yet in the conversation, though, Charles.
Yeah, I definitely want to touch on that. I definitely want to touch on that, but we'll save it for talking Trek. Right now, guys, starting with Charles. This week's movie pick of the week is whatever you may want it to be. No particular theme. Just give us a movie you want people to check out this week, and also tell everybody where they can contact you when they can if they want to get a hold of you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't seen any movies the last couple of weeks. I did rent King Kong, the new King Kong, about a couple of weeks ago, and that one just I was in shock. It was like watching an old Vietnam movie, war movie, than the King Kong. Any of you see that? That was
the Peter Jackson one? No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, the new one that just came out a little while ago. It just came out on disc. It was with it was just, you got to see it. It's like nothing you've ever seen before in a King Kong movie. It was basically the Vietnam War versus King Kong. So it's not a recommended movie, but it's all I got. And you can find me through Charles Brito on Facebook or Picard the Pirate page on Facebook.
All right, and Kristen, your turn.
All right, I didn't catch what you said the movie pick of the week was.
Whatever you want it to be.
It's the new King Kong movie. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought she was asking me. Never mind.
No, whatever I want the pick of the week to be. I'm going to go with The Dark Crystal, because I always have to throw a little fantasy in, and with that whole prequel series coming up, I think everyone should take a look at that.
There you go.
I love that movie.
Dan, where can they find you?
Believe it or not, I don't know if I want to be found, but I only just saw Spider-Man Homecoming, and it was one of my twins got it last weekend and on DVD, and we all sat down and watched it this past weekend, and literally we turned off all the lights, watched it on the big screen in our living room. And even Danny was laughing. If you like Ant-Man, you're definitely going to like Spider-Man Homecoming if you haven't seen it yet. And I think this was the 6th movie attempt to get Spider-Man right, and as far as I'm concerned, they finally did. So if you haven't seen that yet, go see it. I haven't seen Thor yet. I've heard mixed reviews, but I always seem to hear mixed reviews about Thor. But I'm personally looking forward to going to see that next, actually.
All right, and where can they find you?
Probably if you're not looking for me on Radiocast FM or Realm of the Mist, then just the next show right after this one. Find you there? Okay then.
I think my movie pick of the week is going to be an animated film that just recently released, Batman and Harley Quinn. Set back into the mythos of the Batman animated series. Honestly, I thought I was going to hate it like I did The Killing Joke, but it was hilarious, and gives a little special appearance by Swamp Thing, voiced by the great Mark Hamill. So it is definitely worth a check out. If nothing else, I'll give you one scene, and that's after they stop for burritos and Harley has some intestinal issues in the Batmobile. Funniest scene in the whole movie. When you see Batman cover his nose, you know it's bad. Guys, you can
Robin, not in the car. I mean, Batman didn't have automatic bat nose plugs?
Well, I don't want to describe it scene for scene, but like Batman and Nightwing are in the front seat, Harley's in the back, and she's saying we need to find a bathroom because I'm having some intestinal issues, and Batman's absolutely just not having it. It's like, no, we're going to where we need to go, and she says, okay, fine, and she lifts cheek and lets it rip. And, you know, Nightwing's the first one to react, like, oh my god, that's so foul, open a window, blah, 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 blah. And Batman's just as stoic as he normally is, and then just out of nowhere, you see him just bring his gloved hand up and cover his mouth and nose.
Oh, wow.
It was, you know, it's a dick and fart joke, but it worked so well that it was just hilarious. Or the scene where they go into the bad guy's bar and Batman's standing in the middle of the bar drinking a glass of milk. It's
It's like we're drinking fruit juice.
Trust me, it's worth checking out at least once. And of course, you can find me on realmofthemist.com, Realm of the Mist YouTube channel, and up next on Talking Trek here on Radiocast FM. So stick with us. We'll be right back, guys. Thanks for another Fourth Wall.
You're welcome.
And we are clear.